The following is a paid advertisement. The content shared does not reflect the beliefs or opinions of Three Eagles Communications, Headwaters Media, or Heart of the Rockies radio management or staff.
Hello, welcome to the Living in Salida podcast. I'm your host, Monica McCarthy, a realtor that specializes in Salida and surrounding areas. In this podcast, we talk about what it's truly like to live in this small mountain town of Salida, Colorado. Many of my episodes are with guests who offer different insights from different points of view of living in this town, living, working, playing in Salida. But today, this episode is going to be with me. We're going to do a deep dive into what it's like to raise kids in Salida, Colorado. I've spoken to multiple different guests who are parents in this town, and many of them were drawn to Salida because of the draw to raise kids here. So we're going to do a deep dive into what that's like. So this is the 14th episode of the Living in Salida podcast. And like I said, I've talked to several guests, so I'm going to highlight some of their perspectives as well as my own. I'm a parent of a 4.5-year-old, and one of the many reasons I moved to Salida from Denver in 2017, I just feel like it's an important perspective to go over. So if you are somebody who lives here or thinking of moving here with kids or thinking of moving here and having kids, this is definitely an episode you want to listen to. Okay, let's dive in a little bit more into what it's like to raise kids in Salida, Colorado. I'm going to break it down into a few different topics. So the first topic, and the easiest one to really explore, is the community. A lot of people are drawn to Salida because of the community. We're a small mountain town. It has that small town feel. So what does that mean? Well, a few things. Many of my guests have just talked about that appeal of having a small community where you see familiar faces and know people when you go out. And there's a sense of safety to it as well. I can think of many examples, just kind of playing on the playground with your kid and, asking a parent, hey, can you keep an eye on my kid while I go to the bathroom real quick? Or, we push each other's kids on the swings and look out for each other if one kid's running off in one direction, especially parents with multiple kids. I was hanging out with one of my kids' classmates the other day, and it was a dad by himself with 3 kids, and it was just me and my son. And so I was helping him push his kids on the swing because he was running around like crazy with them. So there's just a lot of the, parenting together, that the group feel of being in this sense of community. My guest, Laura Williams, she was on episode 4. She's an entrepreneur and currently raising 2 young kids here. So if you're interested in that perspective, listen to episode 4. But she talked about when she first had her first child here, there was a meal train set up for her. And she was just at awe with the fact that the community came together and created a meal train for her and her family when they had their first baby. And we see that a lot here. There's just a lot of community support. And there's one way. So if you're new here, I get that question a lot. I just spoke to somebody who just moved here, and they were talking about, how do I get to meet other parents? How do I get engaged with that part of the community? And one resource is a Facebook group. Now, if you're not on Facebook, I tell people it's okay. Just join it. You can even become anonymous. You don't have to scroll every day. You can create an account to just join a Facebook group, because Salida is actually very Facebook centered in terms of a way to learn about things. That's a really good message board. There's a few community pages, but the one for parents is called Ark Valley Mountain Families. And this is a page that if you are looking for childcare, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, if you're looking for advice, if you're looking to sell whatever kid item or try to find whatever kid item. I actually, before I had my son, found a good amount of, the stuff you need, the bouncy chair, all the stuff that's expensive that you use for like 3 months when they're a baby and you don't want to buy new. You can find that on this Facebook page. And also the advice part, I want to circle back to. One of my guests, Sarah Gartzman, who I just interviewed in episode 13, her and I had a really wonderful exchange a few years ago. I had my son and at the very beginning of COVID. And so we were a little bit kept away from other people for a while. And the first time I left him with a babysitter, he was really upset, which was obviously really upsetting for me. And I remember posting on that Facebook page, can I please get some advice on what you do for separation anxiety for your kid when you leave them with a babysitter for the first time? And Sarah messaged me and gave me some really nice advice. And I got advice from a lot of other families too. And I see that a lot on that page of a parent that's just struggling with whatever parent, fill in the blank. There's so many things. And so it's a little bit of a support group too. And I haven't seen anybody, ridiculing anybody or, it's just a lot of uplifting, helping each other. I even saw somebody recently say there are no dumb questions on that page. So there's just a way to have that community feel in a digital world there, but it's all people that live here and can give you their perspective and advice. And then in addition to that, meeting people in person is obviously really important. And so there's a lot of community events here, which I'll get into it a little bit more, but just being able to meet other parents at the park is actually a good way, and other kid events where you start seeing, because it's a small enough town, you start seeing the same faces, especially if you have kids the same age. And that's actually how I met a lot of my mom friends, is just being at the same place and creating relationships that way, and then setting up play dates. That Facebook page was a way that I actually connected with some other moms to create play dates and get to know each other. So there's just a lot of that desire to connect on a community level here as a parent, and especially if you have young kids. And I think it's just important to point that out. Our culture here is also really outdoor focused. So, when you move to Salida, and I've talked about this a lot in this podcast, you're drawn to the abundance of outdoor activities here. We are by the river. We're by a ski mountain. There's a bunch of trails. It's absolutely gorgeous. There's just abundance of outdoor things. So the people who live here tend to be outdoorsy, and the kids are exposed to those outdoor activities at a very young age. And so there's that, just the outdoor focus is a huge just cultural vibe here as well. And there's a lot of bike riding here. A lot of people who move here want to have the downtown walkable, bikeable Salida lifestyle. And I see a lot of families ride their bikes to school with their kids, or the older kids ride their bikes to school or walk. And I love just kind of, especially in the downtown corridor area, seeing that. It's just such a wholesome feel to see families ride their bikes to school. My son is in preschool, and even his peers, that I see them kind of coming together riding their bikes. It's just a very Salida thing, I think. So yeah, like I mentioned, a lot of my guests have mentioned the reason why they moved here was for that small town lifestyle. And so just listen to several of my episodes. There's one, episode 12, where I interviewed Jake Grishavi, the new owner of Heart of the Rockies Radio, and he said that he was drawn to Salida because him and his wife wanted to bring their kids to have a small town experience opposed to living in the city. So there's just a lot of that here, that community, small town feel. Okay, let's talk about activities. So you have a kid, that matters a lot. What are you going to do with your kids besides, taking them to school? And I think because it's a small town, if you're looking at it from the perspective of comparing it to the city, it might feel like, well, what am I going to do with my kids there? So, we don't have a museum or a movie theater or a children's museum or a zoo, but we're near those places. So you can have, fun weekend getaways or even day trips to places to visit that. But Salida itself has, like I said, such a huge outdoor focus, and there's so many fun activities related to the outdoors here that are great for kids. So I'm just going to go through and highlight a few of them. there are so many, but we have the Arkansas River going through our town, and everything from just kids playing in the river in the summertime. They even have life jackets set up to offer for free for kids and events where you can get free life jackets, by the way. Because obviously don't let your kid just jump in the water with no life jacket. But there's a lot of playing in the river here and rafting. And then there's a surf wave. And like this past summer, it was so fun to see just families playing in the river a lot. And then in the winter, we have, we're less than 30 minutes away from Monarch Ski Mountain. So there's a lot of, obviously you can take your kids to ski there, but there's ski school. You can sign up when they're a little bit older to sign them up to learn how to ski. And there's a lot of programs related to skiing here. We even have youth paddling programs. So back to the river, there's, learning how to kayak, and they're even bringing those types of programs into the public schools themselves. So kids at school can start to take kayaking lessons. Where else can you do that? I don't think you can do that in Denver. And anything from like youth soccer to very different types of programs related to the outdoors. There's a program called Elevate Her, which is a nonprofit for young women that has a good outdoor focus for it. We also have many parks here. So all throughout town, we have a lot of playgrounds and parks for kids to play at. And then also nearby Poncha Springs has parks. There's a really fun arcade called Fun Street that my kid loves going to, and a lot of kids as well. There's also the Aquatic Center, which is an indoor hot springs located in Salida. And I like to joke with other parents here, our kids are so spoiled. So I grew up in Texas where swimming was outside and it could be cold. The water could be cold. Obviously, Texas is not very cold in the summer, but the water could be cold. But the kids in our town are just acclimated to this perfect warm temperature pool. So it's lovely all year round, but especially in the wintertime on those days that you just don't want to go outside and you don't know what to do with your child, bring them to the Aquatic Center. And there's a really nice pool there. And then also we're really close to Mount Princeton Hot Springs, which also has a kid-friendly section as well. There's a slide in the summer. My child and many of his peers took swimming lessons. So he learned how to swim at Mount Princeton Hot Springs, which is a destination point for many people. How amazing is that? So our kids just have this access to this outdoor beauty that is just amazing. We also have it because it's a really low key kind of non-pretentious vibe in our town for the most part. Most of our restaurants are very kid friendly and our events are very kid friendly as well. There's a lot of live music in the park in the summer and various events like that. So just a lot of kid focused places and events here, and a lot of organizations offer summer camps, and we have a pumpkin patch in the fall. So there's just a lot of stuff going on here. There's a Salida circus, and just think about things like that. If you move here and you're wanting to know, what works for my specific kid and their interests or their age, like I said, go to that Facebook page and just ask some questions and get some advice. That's a really good resource for you. And another one is our library is absolutely amazing. I have to say, I lived in Denver for almost 10 years and I never went to the library. But as a parent here, our library is just amazing. It's right across the street from a really nice park, but they also have a lot of activities for kids of all ages. But one fun one when you have younger kids is every Wednesday morning they have a story time. And that's actually how I met some of my son met some of his friends, and how I met some of my mom friends was at the story time at the library every Wednesday at 10. And just go to their website and see what other fun activities. They always have something fun for the kids there. So it's a really great resource to have that small community library, just kind of keeping us all together and keeping the kids exposed to education, which is obviously very beneficial. And they even just started a mobile bookmobile, or excuse me, I guess it's just called a bookmobile, that just launched just in the last few weeks. So if you're interested in that, There's a schedule at salidalibrary.org, but this bookmobile is driving to different parts of the town, and it's parked there for a few hours in different places to provide access to books, which is great for all members of the community. But if you're a parent and you didn't, wherever you live, it was hard to get to the library that week, you could bring your kid to the bookmobile. There are lots of kid books available there as well. So just wanted to share that new resource. And so, we just have a lot of fun activities in this town. And when you dig a little deeper, I feel like there's something going on most days, certainly most weeks, that are kid-centered here. Okay, so as the parents, that's the fun stuff. Let's get a little bit more serious and talk about, okay, what about healthcare for kids? So, I did a podcast talking about the pros and cons of living here. And one of the things I pointed out was, we are in a rural area. We do not have the degree of medical facilities as you would see perhaps in the Front Range or even Colorado Springs. So, however, we do have Heart of the Rockies Regional Medical Center, which is right here in Salida. And so starting from, birth, they have a great birthing center. So if you have a non-complicated pregnancy, that is a good option for you. Laura Williams, who I already mentioned, who is in episode 4, referenced her experience there and that she had a good experience there. And I've spoken to a lot of other moms who have as well. So that facility offers birthing classes and support through there. Like I said, non-complicated birth. So there's no NICU here. There's no obstetrician. So if you do have those needs, that's something that you would need to go to for the Front Range, to be completely clear on that. But it is a good option for many people. Also, we do not have a pediatrician here. However, there are many family medical doctors, medical providers that obviously take care of kids. So, your kid is sick, you can take them to the doctors here. Absolutely. But we don't have that specialist of a pediatrician here. But doctors who are familiar with kids and would be able to help you with your child. And we don't have a pediatric dentist. We have family dentists as well. So some people take their kids to Canyon City for a pediatric dentist that's there. That's probably the closest one. Or Colorado Springs or Denver for, as things become more specialized, you might need to go to the Front Range depending on what the need is. But there are some less severe or less specialty, I should say, options here in Salida. Okay, so let's talk about childcare next. That's a big topic for parents. I mean, it's a challenge in many parts of our country of just having access to childcare. And so in terms of access, we'll start with, from birth to 1 year. That's the most challenging age to get care in Salida. We do not, to my knowledge, please correct me if I'm wrong, have any facilities that are licensed to take care of babies here. So if you are somebody who just had a baby and needs help, your options are to find your own support. So to hire your own nanny, babysitter, that sort of thing. So that is one challenge. Now, many parents decide to have, a stay-at-home parent that first year to help with that issue, or hire a nanny or babysitter to support during that time. And then as they get older, the options start to grow. There are just 2 facilities that offer 1-year-olds and up. And then as they get a little bit older, we have a few preschools here. And I'm not going to get into granular information on exactly all the differences between those, but they're varying ages requirements. And generally speaking, being on the wait list is needed. So they don't just have open doors and a lot of space available. So you do need to be proactive to get on the wait list to get access to those facilities. And there's different requirements and pricing and all of that. I will say that just a few years ago, Colorado as a state is now offering stipends for universal pre-K. So my son just turned 4 this year, and he goes to the Montessori school, and was really nice having that stipend this year because you didn't have that when they're 3, but you get that when they're 4. And so the preschools, not all, many of the preschools here, you can work to have that universal preschool stipend, and that can help with your tuition for the preschool. Very huge. And then as they get older, obviously they're going to be going to public school, kindergarten up, which I'll talk about schools next, but we're talking about daycare right now. Another big thing is pointing out that, well, let me back up. The Facebook page that I mentioned before is also a resource to find those nannies and babysitters. So the way I've found the childcare that I've had, my son is now 4, but I needed help the past few years as well, was through I interviewed my very first guest, Anna Edgren, on episode 2. I met her through a nanny share. We shared a nanny when our kids were very small. And so that was a successful option for us. We had similarly aged kids. We were able to link together through that resource and find somebody to take care of them. So that's another choice to get access to those people. And then also just asking around. So as you're at the park chatting with somebody, ask, where's your child go? Who do you use as a babysitter? So there's just a lot of kind of figuring it out that way to find out of new opportunities. I know of a few people who recently heard of an opening at an at-home daycare. There's several at-home daycares here as well, who heard of an opening at an at-home daycare because their kid got into a school and, told somebody, and then they were able to take that spot. So it's a challenge, but there are solutions to it. And I know it's a big topic of conversation in our community as a whole to create solutions for it as well. So keep that in mind. We are a small community, but there's a lot of proactive thought behind childcare. But if you're looking to move here, I was just talking to somebody about this today. If you're looking to move here and you're thinking of what kind of business we need, childcare is one of them. So keep that in mind as well. Okay. School. This point relates to childcare. There's no school on Fridays in Salida. I didn't know that when I first moved here, and that is a surprise for some people as well. And some people, are taken aback by that. But it's just kind of, you get used to it, and there are some solutions for it. So obviously, there are working parents that's a challenge. There's a organization called the Boys and Girls Club, and they offer, really daycare, childcare on Fridays and in the summer, and after school care as well. That's for kids 6 and up. So keep that in mind. It's a little bit for older kids, but that's a choice that a lot of parents make to put their kids into that as an option for Fridays. And then also there's a lot of, again, a little bit less official options like babysitters and that sort of thing for Fridays. Or if you're a working parent, you kind of depending on the age of your child and your needs, kind of make it work. But that's a point that I feel like is just something we get used to in town. And I talked to somebody recently who mentioned that their kids, that they feel like our kids in Salida are more, more adapt to the real world, and because they don't have school on Fridays, they're more integrated into the world that way. So I thought that was an interesting perspective. Okay, let's talk about school a little bit more. So like I kind of mentioned, we have preschools that can also be seen as daycare, but it's a school as well. And we also have several public schools. So there's an Salida Early Childhood Center, which is from 1 to 5 years old. So it's kind of, you could view that as a daycare or a school. It's through the Salida Public School District. We also have a high school and a non-traditional high school, a middle school, a non-traditional middle school, and an elementary school here. We also have a Montessori school that starts out at the toddler house, so 1 and walking all the way through 8th grade. And that's another choice for school here. And we have in Salida been seeing a lot of young families move here in recent years. So our schools are growing. And one thing I want to mention, and we talked about this in episode 2 when I spoke to Anna Edgren about living in Howard, is Howard is out of district from Salida. And so if you have an elementary school kid and you live in Howard, you are considered out of district, and the elementary school is starting to fill up more. And so getting slots available in the elementary school is no longer a guarantee when you're out of district. So keep that in mind if you're looking to move here and you're trying to decide where you want to live. So in district versus out of district might be a choice for you especially if you have elementary school aged children. And our schools are actually pretty high ranked, and the high school offers college credits with the Salida Mountain College. We have a mountain college here, and that's a good resource for people as well. And if you're looking at it from an athletic perspective in school, we're remote, so there might be some traveling to places like Alamosa and Colorado Springs, depending on what activity your kid is in. So there might be some driving, but when you move all the way out to this remote mountain area, that depending on what you're into and what activities your kids are in, there might be some driving. But those are just kind of an overview of considerations if you have a kid here, if you're looking to raise kids here, what that lifestyle would be like. There's pros and cons to that depending on your perspective. We do have that small mountain town community, that's very strong community feel and outdoor vibe, the ethos of really valuing outdoors and having access to the outdoors. So if that's a value structure that your family holds, then perhaps SLED is a good place for you to come and raise your kids. And if you have any insight into that, please message me or leave a comment. I'm one person with one kid and access to the people I've spoken to, but there are, I'm sure, a lot of other perspectives on raising kids here. So the Living in Salida podcast, we just have a few more episodes this season. So stay tuned for more information about the wrap up to our season here. And if you're interested in living in Salida, Colorado, please reach out to me, like I said, to talk to me about this or to talk about moving here. All of my contact information is in the show notes below. Let's set up a time to chat. I'd be happy to help you make a smooth transition to the Salida, Colorado area and be a resource for you to answer questions that you have, whether it's kid information or homes or any other topics about living here. If you're interested in learning more about living in Salida, Colorado, as well as the real estate market here, I also have a lot of information on my YouTube channel. It's called Living in Salida, Colorado, and it's a place to watch informative new videos every single week. So check that out and subscribe so you're the first to know when new information comes available. Again, I'm Monica McCarthy, a realtor that specializes in Salida, Colorado and surrounding areas. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.